Right, and we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sport for today's watch-along between the Griquas and the Cheetahs. A bit of a dead rubber in many ways, well, in all ways, really, because obviously these two teams haven't qualified for the Currie Cup semi-finals, but they'll still be wanting to go out on a high and try and sort of get a decent showing of themselves in their last game of the season. For the Cheetahs, it is a very, very sad moment for them because, I mean, after this game, they kind of go into limbo where they're not quite sure where they're going, not quite sure what's going to happen to the union itself, where they're going to go in terms of the competition after being sort of kicked out of Super Rugby, not Super Rugby, Pro 14. So yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking for them last weekend when they did go out, where they did have that last minute victory, or last minute loss rather, against the Western Province. But you know what? For many players, for example, it's such an opportunity for them to try and sort of stand up, maybe try and find themselves a contract, move to a Pro 16 union or something like that. So there still is a little bit to play for, but I mean, hopefully with all the shackles released, really, it could be a really good game of hopefully running rugby and high point scoring game. Also, another opportunity for Amy Barrett-Turon to continue making history within the women's refereeing world. She takes charge of the game as the Griquas get things underway. They are playing left to right in Kimberley. And Jean-Louis Rudolph, as usual, is right into the thick of things as he carries it up. So before we settle into the game itself, let me know what your score predictions are. In the chat there, I think I said Cheetahs by 15 in my prediction, my preview. So let me know what your predictions are in the chat there. Let's get them down there now. We can go revisit them at the end of the game. Bit of a ping pong fest at the moment. I'll take it all back. Right, so let's just see how the game settles in, and then we'll go through the team, see what's happening, and see what quite a few changes for the Cheetahs. Hobby's free with nothing to play for, giving a couple of youngsters a go. Cornea in the number 7 jersey, the 19-year-old, a really good prospect as the Griquas kick that into touch. So we'll have our first set piece just a minute into the game. Right, so let's have a look at the teams themselves. So, for the Griquas, the pretty standard fullback, James Verity, kind of faded away a bit. Had a very nice sort of start to the game, start to the season, and then sort of, I'm going to get injured, and then hasn't quite been the same since. Daniel Kasende and Edwin Cato are the two wings. Holland Klaassen, Andre Swartz, two centers there. Tennis de Beer, Zach Berger captains the side. A loose trio of Johan Momsen, Stefan Willemse, and Gideon van der Merwe. Very settled that. Watch out for Gideon van der Merwe. He'll be absolutely everywhere. A bit of a live wire, a very hard worker, always in the game. And then on the locks, RJ Smith comes in, and he partners Cameron Lindsay, John Roy Jenkinson, Alandre van Rooyen, and Mark Morley are the front row as the Griquas get an early penalty, in fact. Then on the bench, CJ Conradi, Bandisa Ndlovu, Tidi Fisser, Ivan Kutsia, Steve Akoma, Ashlon Davids. George Whitehead is back from injury, so that's a big boost for the Griquas, and then Edivisi Ardenser as number 23 there. In case were any issues there, they did have Andrew Bierwinkel, Regan Oranje, and Masikole Banda also available for them. But it's been a good start for the Griquas here. After the first lineup, they won it, and they've won a penalty, and they've kicked quite deep into the Cheetahs' half, so they'll set up with about an 8-meter lineup, let's call it. For the Cheetahs, as I said, quite a few changes in their 23, but nothing changes at fullback. Clayton Blommekeys, Mr. Reliable, always an exciting player to watch. Likes to run it from deep. Probably one of the best counter-attacking players in the country. Duncan Sol comes into the team ahead of Renaud Smith. Dries Swanepoel and France Steyn is the centre pairing. Roscoe Speckman keeps his place. Renan Fortuyn. Theon Meyer comes in place of Ruben de Haas. Jean-Louis Rudolph. And hang on, the Griquas are over in the early stages. So that's a huge boost for them. Let's add the points there, and there it is. Nice, good start there, kicked down there, won them all, they got it going, and they go over very early. So that's the perfect start. Alandre van Rooyen, the man with the try there, and a perfect start for the Griquas was just 3 minutes into the game, and they're on the board. Yeah, very nicely structured. It's one of those things. As soon as the rolling more is set, it becomes very difficult to start. And Alandre van Rooyen just pops up the side and gets it over. And it should be it's not the easiest kick for Tennis de Beer. towards the right-hand side, about 10 meters from touch. Hasn't had the best of season with the boot. He's just a 58% kicking percentage. But as we return to the Cheetahs side, so Tia Main has come in for Ruben de Haas, and then Jean-Andre Rudolph, he's been massive since arriving at the Union. George Currie, the 19-year-old, and DC and Zila, always in the game, very hard worker, loves the physicality of it, loves to making use of himself at the breakdown. Reno Hugo, Wegner, very settled in that lock combination. Conrad van Vuren, Marnus van der Merwe, and Bowen Venter. Bowen Venter was particularly impressive last weekend, won a very important scrum penalty. And then on the bench for the Cheetahs, Louis van der Westhuizen, Cameron Dawson, Kutum Chuno gets dropped. Probably, I think he does probably get dropped in many ways. I've struggled a bit at scrum time last weekend. Victor Sekete, Chris Massey, and Ruben de Haas is on the bench this weekend, as is Howard Nisi and Rayno Smith. So some decent players to come off the bench. We are having a bit of a TMO referral here. I'm not quite sure what it was for. It looks like there could be a knock-on as he grounds it. So maybe not the best start for the Griquas. We'll have to wait and see. Having a look. Yeah, it does look like he loses. So this could actually be a bit of a premature celebrations for the Griquas. And Amy Babaturan says that it is, in fact, still consulting with the TMO, but it does look like this try might not stand. They're looking for compelling evidence to change Amy Babaturan's on-field decision, which was a try. The time is in fact off, so let me just stop that there. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any grounding. I think Amy Babaturan's going to have to change her decision here. Looks like he does lose the ball as he goes over. Okay, so the decision is no try. There was a knock-on, so they will restart with a scrum to the Cheetahs on the 5 meters. So it almost the perfect start for the Griquas, but unfortunately, Andrew Van Ooyen just losing the ball as he went over. But still a good start for the Griquas, and a nice set piece here. First scrum of the day. Scrum-wise, it should be very much one-sided. The Cheetahs have got quite a strong scrum there. I mean, they did very well last weekend against the Western Province, which is a Springbok front row. So given the fact that they coped very well there, let's just fix the scorecard. I reckon we should be in quite a dominant scrum for the Cheetahs this week. And a decent scrum there from the Griquas. John Rudolph, man who picks up and got them a bit of space here. And they're going to look to run. No, Clayton Blomkeys looks for a bit of a cross kick. And Duncan Solnall gets into the game. So a bit of ingenuity from the Cheetahs and a very nice first run from the wing. Does well stay inside as well. So Cheetahs taking a bit of a risk and reaping the reward so far. They get up to almost the halfway line. Still looking to keep it wide. Next time they're going to go all the way to the left wing. And see with not much to do, a lot of attackers ahead of him, decides to take it into contact, and now it looks like Frans Steyn will bring out that gun boot of his. Not the best kick, kind of downfield, a bit of a nothing kick really. And now the Griquas will try and counter through James Bertie-Am. A couple of kicks here. Griquas back on the halfway line at the moment. And that's a knock on there by the Griquas. So the Cheetahs will have another scrum. So a decent start. And as I said, this was the nice thing about hopefully having two sides which don't have much to play for, to be honest, because, you know, losing doesn't really matter for both these sides. So if it was ever a chance for them to just try and play a bit of expansive rugby, just try and get some big hits in, some decent runs, try and impress a few selectors and stuff like that, this is the game. So hopefully on that note, we will see a bit more a willingness to run and a willingness to try and keep the ball in hand a little bit more instead of always sort of trying to play a very tactical battle. Let's try and see some running rugby and try and get a nice big scorecard. Okay. So we've had a couple of resets there, so not much happening at the moment. It's been the sort of the story of the tournament so far. Resets. And I think, you know, as many times they've tried redoing the scrum rules to try and fix the resets, it just really hasn't worked so far. Trying to make it a lot safer. And in theory, a lot of the scrum, the law changes were supposed to reduce the amount of resets, but yeah, hasn't really succeeded at the moment. That's asking what sort of money is France staying on his Cheetahs contract. I actually have no idea, but I think whatever it is, I think the Bulls are about to probably double it and add some more. Well, if he does go to the Bulls, I mean, I don't know. Seeing some reports now that Hudson's going, but I don't see Cheetahs. I mean, if France Steyn wants to keep his rugby career going, I don't see him staying at the Cheetahs for very long. I can try and find out what the sort of wages are. Theo Wilson says the Cheetahs are going to win. Well, they should win. They're expected to win. So, in theory, if all goes to plan, then they should hopefully be ending their Currie Cup season with a victory. Blommetjies turns the Griquas, but James Verity cleans up and he finds touch. That's within the Cheetahs half, so it's a very good kick. But there we go. Cheetahs trying to keep it alive. Roscoe Speckman's given a bit of space. He's got a lot of blue shirts ahead of him, though, so it does run into contact, but they do manage to keep it. There we go. Duncan Stiles had some good runnings there. And then we've got an early penalty for the Cheetahs on the halfway line. So, I mean, it's well within France Steyn's range, but you'd like to think that given the situation, there's not much point in going for the 3 points. Offsides there by the Griquas. But I'd really like to see the Cheetahs kick to the corner, try and do something here. Which is what they're going to do. Yeah, there we go. No. Don't have a discussion. Line up and put it in the corner. We want to see tries. We want to see points. We don't want to see a test match here. If this game meant something, we can do test match rugby. But although, having said that, he's actually not found touch there. And James Verity and trying to keep that in, has knocked it on. So, instead of a line out on the 5 meter, it looks like they'll have a scrum on the 5 meter. Right, so this is a big opportunity for the Cheetahs. We're 13 minutes in. A scrum just by the 5 meter. I mean, then I reckon they'll have the scrum. They'll win the scrum battle pretty much all day. So probably look for a penalty. Well, having said that, the Griquas scrum stood very still there. France stayed with an inside ball. That's Duncan Sol. That's about the 3rd time he's carried the ball up already. Been very involved as he's coming in for Rayner Smith. There's another arm out for offside against the Griquas. This is better from the Cheetahs. Lining up players, getting players in behind them. Bowen Fenter carries very well there. There was a turnover, which looked like it was legal, but obviously with an advantage of going back for the penalty. And I reckon the Cheetahs could probably opt for the line out. So I got time off here. I'm not sure what for. Got an injury to Johan Momsen. So it looks like the Cheetahs are going to put this into touch. I would have liked them to have gone for the scrum. Although having said that, to be fair to the Griquas, stood up very strong in that scrum there. Was almost no movement whatsoever. So maybe it won't be as dominant as we thought. Now take it all back. Cheetahs doing the Cheetahs, and that is an monstrous kick. So the Cheetahs took it quickly there, gave it to France State, and he tried a very ambitious cross kick across to Roscoe Speckman, but just got too much of it, and it sailed into touch with space to go. So still 0-0 here. The Eagles have a defensive line up pretty much on their 5 meter line on the left-hand side this time. So Cheetahs trying to be a bit creative, trying to do things a bit differently, as they always have over the years, but not quite coming off for them just yet. Uncontested by the Griquas. Decent tackle there from from Reniel Hugo. And now the Griquas on their try line. We're not quite sure what's happening. The Cheetahs are all celebrating here. It looks like they reckon that they've turned the ball over and managed to put this down, which will be horrific from the Griquas if that is the case. It's the youngster Currie who's looks like he's done something here. And now we have to go back up to TMO. I mean, if this is a try, it would just sum up the Griquas season, really. It's not been good enough the entire season, and this could be a pretty poor, very ordinary piece of play if this is a try. Yeah, so George Currie is, well, stood up with the ball, and he reckons he's grounded it. So you have to check a few things here. First of all, how did he get the ball? Was it a legal turnover? Second of all, was there clear grounding? Okay, so the counter-attack comes in. Zach Berger struggling to get the ball out from under his feet. Then Currie, I reckon that's from the side. So all that's happened basically is that there's a counter-attack that's come in. George Currie has then come through the side and pretty much just tapped the ball on the ground and is now trying to claim a try because the ball was around the try line. I'd be very surprised if this is a try. There's a good counter-attack here from Carl Wagner. The ball's on the line at the rack. So Zach Burger desperately trying to get the ball out from underneath the ruck. There's a couple of boots there. I mean, I think it does Zach Burger try and ground it. Yeah, it looks like he does. Well, it's on a boot. This is very, very weird. I've never seen this sort of situation, to be honest. The counter ruck comes through. So the ball's basically underneath a couple of players' feet. Zach Burger, as he's trying to get it out, counter ruck comes through. In him trying to get the ball out, almost looks like he tries to ground it. Then Currie comes from, my opinion, comes from the side and tries to basically just chucks a hand on it and goes and says, you know, he's scored, which we'd be very surprised if that's deemed to be legal. In the meantime, please do smash a like on the video. Let's try and see if we can get up to 20 likes before half time. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Okay, so the verdict is there's no clear grounding from a Cheetahs player. They reckon that the ball's been taken back by the Griquas and therefore will be a 5-meter scrum for the Cheetahs. So a very good piece of counter-racking there from Carl Wechner. He's been very good for the Cheetahs this season. Really led from the front. A nice physical, hard-working player. Nothing fancy as locks and usually are. Just gets the job done, really. So, Griquas making a bit of a hash of trying to get out of the situation. Now have to try and defend an attacking scrum. A very good opportunity here for the Cheetahs. And it's gone straight down. Surprise, surprise. Reset, reset, reset. That's pretty much been the sort of the case the entire tournament, really. We should probably get this clock back on. So now we're moving because there's obviously not enough grip underfoot. Love to know how much we lose every game for resets. I mean, it must be quite a few minutes. Every game, so many resets. Then you have to move, and then resets. Then you have to have a chat, and there's more resets. And there's a threat of a yellow card. Sometimes there are yellow cards, and you have to put a new prop on. All disaster. Well, anyway, everyone said thank you. They've gone to the side. Duncan Saul. Good tackle. He doesn't keep him though. He runs back in field. Well, it's a penalty. So I reckon Duncan Saul reckons everyone thinks he's called on the tackle, though it's actually gone back to the Cheetahs who have an advantage. And they're running it back to try and take quickly, but there's a drop, so they'll have to wait for the reset. All very messy at the moment. Cheetahs desperately trying to get a try on the board. Trying to go wide, trying to get their backline into it. I mean, Duncan Saul has made about 4 or 5 carries already in the early stages here, so very watchable when we're not having scrum resets. Yeah, it's just too strong there from the Cheetahs. I mean, it wasn't completely dominated. But we will try again. So let's hope we have less resets or no resets. Imagine a scrum with no resets. I tell you. Stuff of dreams. And another reset. Shocker, shocker. Now Emily will have a nice couple of words with them and we'll probably have another reset. I hate resets. Hate them. So, after quite a frantic start, it looks like we could be hitting 20 minutes with actually no score on the board. which is, I suppose, credit a bit to the Griquas who weathered a bit of an early storm. Cheetahs as well, who were under pressure a lot in the early stages. The Cheetahs have then since started to dominate. And that is a massive scrum, and that's kind of what we expected the entire season, or the entire game. And Roscoe Speckman comes in. That's a fantastic covering tackle. They're coming through by the loose forward and Zach Berger. Cheetahs looked to go to the blind side, decent inside ball, but some nice recovery. And now the Cheetahs are running at it, but Griquas are defending really strong. Actually, a lot of heart being shown here. Very physical at the moment. But just can't keep it up. And the Cheetahs do go over for the first try. A very nice carry there. Just too much power. The Griquas had some very good scramble defense there to try and stop the try off the back of a very dominant scrum from the Cheetahs. And I reckon, as we said, that'll be an area where they'll just dominate all day long. That's where it's going to become the longest day for the Cheetahs, unless they can try and curb the scrum battle. But Marlins van der Merwe is the try scorer. He went over, just too much power. Picks up and drives, 2 players there, but Tian Meyer helps him over the line, and there was just, unfortunately, not much the Griquas could do. Frans Steyn will line up his first kick of the day, kicked beautifully last weekend. So the Cheetahs will be hoping he'll just pick up where he left off, which he does. 2 more points there, and the Cheetahs are on the board in 20 minutes. And I probably spoke too soon. I said we might get 20 minutes without a score. Good take there from Renat Fortain, and John Ray Rudolph, as usual, is the one to bash it up. And the Cheetahs looking to keep it alive. This is what we like to see. So, usually very critical of people who don't have great exit plans, but the Cheetahs moving the ball here. Frans Fortain eventually kicks it. So it's a nice exit play from the Cheetahs, who really are trying to sort of up the tempo a bit, which is good to see. And I think if they do, it really becomes a test of the fitness. Although, having said that, the Griquas will be used to the heat in Kimberley. It does look quite hot, although there were some showers earlier, apparently, so might not be as hot as it usually is. So it's all Cheetahs at the moment. The Griquas looked very good in the early stage, but since then it really has become all Cheetahs. And the Griquas now have the rare opportunity to get a bit of possession and try and impose themselves on the game. And they do with a nice carry there. Zach Berger trying to up the tempo here. A very good defensive read by Roscoe Speckman. He wraps up Edwin Cater. And De Beer decides to try and turn. They had an advantage 4 offsides. So once again, I'm sure the Griquas will try and kick to the corner. And they had a good rolling ball in the first place. Unfortunately, Andre van Nooyen just dropping the ball over the line. So sure, we'll try and do pretty much the same thing. And this time, just keep the ball in hand and just not drop it and actually try and score. Because if the Cheetahs, if the Griquas win today, it will be the first game they've won all season. It's been a very poor campaign from the side from Kimberley. And just to be fair, they've had some reasonable performances, but just, I can't, same as the Pumas, can't put it together over 80 minutes in one game, you know. Pumas always come back later in the game. Well, then that's the big thing for them, to try and stay in the game for as long as they can and then see if they can try and storm the Cheetahs later on. So a couple of words to the Cheetahs players during the line to keep sort of creeping in and creeping into the Griquas line itself. A lot of slowing the game down at the moment. So I think if Amy Tabaratoa just needs to be a bit careful and try and accelerate the game a bit and stop more stoppages that we don't need. They go to the back to try and set up the more. And they've got some momentum, definitely going forward, a bit to the side. They've broken off, still going. It looks like a lunge from Norway will game with the man with the ball. They've got a penalty advantage. So De Beer tries to stab a kick through. Oh, it bounces everywhere. The bounce of the rugby ball favors the Cheetahs. They'll go back for the penalty, though. And that's a very big boost for the Griquas. You can see that the maul is working for them. So if they can try and get more lineouts and more opportunities for that, I reckon that could be their sort of point of attack. For the Cheetahs, will be the scrums. For the Griquas, so far, the maul has been what's been working for them. So surprise, surprise, they go for another lineout. Right, the third time's the charm. First one, they went straight over and knocked it on. Second one, got up to the 5-meter line. Before it was brought down illegally. So the Griquas here, they try again. They go to the front this time. And they try to shift the contact, but it's well read. So the maul's down, and now they'll have to try and create something with the forwards. A couple of pods being formed. RJ Smith making a few meters. They're getting there, half meter by half a meter. But so far, but some decent defense there from the Cheetahs. And that's actually ripped in the tackle by Andy. Oh, but it's dropped by Frans Steyn. And a knock on. An uncharacteristic error from the Springbok. So it was well from the tackle by Andy and then just pops to Frans Steyn, who dropped it. And I tell you, another bounce, another day, and different bounce. And the Griquas could have been actually ahead, could have picked that up and gone. Bit comical. Frans Steyn taking his eyes off, bounces up off the head, down on the ground. Thankfully, doesn't fall to a Griquas player, and they'll resume with a scrum. But Amy Tabaratoa, just having a word with the two captains here. Quite a few offside penalties creeping up. Players not holding the line, so just saying to be careful, else she will have to go to the bin. Well, she'll have to send someone to the bin. She'll have to go to her cards. Okay, so going back to the penalty. A penalty scrum, sorry. So it is a Greek was put in. So look, it'll be one of those cases where Zach Berg's going to try and put this under the hooker's feet and just try and get this out as quickly as possible, because if they keep this ball in, the Cheetahs will win a scrum. And that'll be all the pressure gone. But 26 minutes so far, 7-0. Griquas are starting to come back into it. I mean, it's fairly obvious, but when either side have had possession, they have looked like scoring. So it has been quite a nice context in that regard. And it's a decent scrum which is holding up. Bit of an error there. Zach Berg almost getting in the way. He managed to get himself up there. Right, so Jean-Noël Rudolph penalized there. Well, no, not penalized. He tried to turn over. It was a very good turnover. Great turnover was the word that the referee used, but Reniel Hugo guilty of not rolling away, and Griquas have another penalty. So penalty count just starting to rack up a little bit. They have a bit of a conference, trying to decide what to do. And they're going to go for polls, actually. So, yeah, look, I suppose fair play. A couple of opportunities. Haven't quite made anything work just yet. Haven't managed to put on the points on the board. So maybe just try and get a penalty, and then they can try and have a bit of a reset with points on the board itself. For the Cheetahs, it's an opportunity for them to try and play some nice rugby. For the Griquas, it really is just about them trying to get a victory. Yep, no issues there for Chance De Beer. He has the 3 points, and the Griquas are on the board. And having a timer usually does help. So let's get that sorted there as well. A decent take here from Cameron Lindsay, and the Griquas have managed to set themselves up to try and clear it. So nice exit play so far. Seems to be a can't find touch. Obviously, he's outside the 22. And now Clayton Blomicki, what do the Cheetahs do? They haven't looked trying. Oh, that's a terrible pass. They'll try probably keep this in hand. Now Duncan Saul, once again, the man involved. A very nice run there by Clayton Blomicki, but well read. And Currie van der Merwe, we haven't seen much of him, and there it is. He's straight over the ball, wins the turnover, and the Griquas have another penalty in a very kickable position, actually. So a nice opportunity for them to try and they can go within 1 point if they can kick this over. And immediately Zach Berger calls on Cheetahs to be and says, go and put us back in the game, shall you? Right, so on the half an hour stage here, not too much separating the sides. If this kick goes over just 1 point, it's been a nice even game, actually. Cheetahs have looked to try and keep it alive. The Griquas are trying to sort of play this a bit more sort of conservatively in the last couple of minutes here, trying to get the victory so they can try and get their first win of the tournament and the season. And then it's back to the drawing board. Not quite sure where the Kimberley franchise goes from here, you know. I mean, they don't have the money really to keep their best players. Need to try and start putting together a squad. We also don't know what's going to actually happen with the Currie Cup in terms of scheduling. In terms of how it's going to happen, where's it going to go. But Cheetahs has no issues adding the extras, so the Cheetahs lead 7-6 so far. Yeah, just completely isolated. Currie van der Merwe straight over the ball there. And once he's over there, you're not going to move him too much. He's been fantastic for the Griquas all season. Let me know in the comments who you're supporting, who you're backing, where you're watching from. So far, it's been quite an even contest. Good defensive read there, but the Griquas do manage to hold on after the kickoff. And in theory, should have the safety of the 22 to try and find touch. Not a great pass to Cheetahs, but he manages. Looks up. He hasn't found touch, though. This looks a lot more like vintage Cheetahs today so far. You know, the willingness to run, trying a couple of offloads. It hasn't come off there. It's been a turnover ball there. Oh dear, there's a comedy of errors at the moment. Griquas have got the ball though. But it's nice to see the Cheetahs trying to be quite expansive, trying to be a bit different. That was what sort of was their trademark thing, you know, just the ability to try different things, try and be inventive, to try and just not always follow the herd and just try and do things their own way. The Griquas have turned Oscar Speckman. He has had time though, so he does turn now. He's got France stay next to him, so I'm sure he'll ask him to try and use his boot of his. And he finds touch in the Griquas half. We've got a player down here. Not sure who it is. Looks like Zach Berger down getting some treatment for a clash on his head. Yeah, it's got a bit of a Yes, that's interesting. So Amy Batron there has penalized the Cheetahs. Jean-Noël Rudolph was advancing. The ball went out, but he kept advancing. Even despite that he is in an offside position, Amy Batron is noticed and penalized. So it's a very good spot there from the ref. So when Zach Berger is all in well, he will make a decision on a penalty. Just clashing there with his prop. Doesn't look great. Looks all right, though. Right, so far, Cheetahs missing just one tackle, which is about right, given the fact that the Griquas have had to go to the polls trying to find their points. The Griquas, on the other hand, have already missed 6 tackles. So guilty a bit there of the defensive line not operating as it should do. Okay, so Greek was given the option here. They've got a penalty by their 10-meter. Alternative, they can go back to where France Dan kicked it and take a scrum. Yeah, so Sanity wins in the end. So they had the option of having a penalty on the 10-meter, alternatively a scrum on the 5. Meanwhile, Zach Berger has gone off to receive treatment. He had a bit of a clash of heads there, but the Griquas will now have a scrum by the 5-meter line. Yeah, so obviously not the set piece they would have wanted in terms of the choice between the line and the scrum, but a much better position. So if they can just recycle this ball, then the Griquas can resume play on the 5 meters. So a big opportunity for them, yeah? And a very big mistake there then from Jean-Noël Rudolph. Good scrum here. Tends to be a... Right, so the penalty for the Cheetahs. Right, that's a big call from Amy Batron, judging that the Griquas have moved over the 5-meter line and came within there and wasn't in the right to be there. So it's a big call from the referee. It's the right call. So that's 2 or 3 very good calls that Amy Batron's made. Very good refereeing so far in the first half. Much better than we've seen for a lot of the competition, to be honest. Yeah, early spot. Completely the right call there. Tends to be just breaking the 5-meter, coming too close to the scrum when the ball comes out, and it's a perfect call, and it's about right. And to compound matters, the kick from the Cheetahs didn't go out, and the Griquas tried to return it, but it did run too far, which means that they've got a scrum on the in the Cheetahs half here. So after what was quite a busy first opening period and stuff like that, we saw some nice running rugby from both sides. But it become a bit sloppy, a bit disjointed in the last few minutes. Yeah, pretty much since the Zach Berger concussion, we've had a couple of minutes where not much is going on. But hopefully the Cheetahs can try and get things back underway with a scrum inside the Griquas half. Duncan saw that's a huge hit on David. He gets it on the game line. And the Cheetahs now go wide. Blomiki stabs it through. Oscar Speckman chasing well. And tried to put that in field, but was carried out and touched. Decent read by him, because if he hadn't got there in time, I think it would have been a bit dangerous. He had Oscar Speckman tearing down on him. Griquas are taking it quickly. Sorry, Cheetahs are taking quickly, though. Gosh. So Cheetahs taking it quickly, whilst Amy Bertrand's marking the line, and Cornier runs straight into her, gets taken out, and the comment there, she retired a long time ago, she doesn't play anymore. So, from the lineup though, not straight there. So as I said, the game getting a bit disjointed over here. It's an error there from the Cheetahs, not straight, so there'll be a scrum or a line out. Right, so the game into the last sort of 3 minutes of the first half, quite messy at the moment. Both sides guilty of just a couple of basic errors. Cheetahs trying to speed up things and trying to sort of impose their attacking nature on the game, but just struggling a little bit at the moment. Greek was now with a defensive scrum on the 22-meter. We haven't quite seen the Cheetahs scrum dominance in the last couple of scrums. We saw it very much so just before they scored the try earlier, but since then, it hasn't quite been the scrum dominance that they would have probably liked to have had. And we've got another reset. Surprise, 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 surprise. So what promised to be quite an open, expansive game has kind of sort of crumbled into very sort of lots of messy set pieces, quite a few resets, few lineouts, players offside at scrums. So let's hope that the second half brings us better fortunes. At the moment, it's just very, very messy. And the Cheetahs win the scrum. That's a lot of pressure coming in from the tight head side there. So pretty much what we expected, really. Cheetahs are always going to have scrum. I think the Greeks have done well. A couple of their own scrums where they managed to recycle the ball quick enough for before the Cheetahs can start imposing their dominance. But overall, the Cheetahs just do have the better scrum. And Marks Kimberley is under too much pressure there, and he just crumbles. Goes straight down. Legs go underneath him. France staying 5 at the corner. And with just over a minute to go, the Cheetahs have a chance to try and extend their lead. Not a very high-scoring game so far. Hopefully that changes in the second half. Although a close game makes for good watching as well, as long as it's a decent game. Cheetahs are going short, and Decent Sealer drops it forward, and the messiness continues. Look, I'm all for trying to be expansive, trying to be different, but we also have to be a little bit clinical here, people. Tends to be recycles that. He finds touch. Well, towards the halfway line, and the Cheetahs once again not clinical enough to get those points there. Poor, poor, poor. Trying to be too creative. They go to Andisi and Sile short. Trying a couple of pop passes. He drops the ball forward. The Griquas managed to get it back, and they clear down the field. Right, so the Cheetahs once again with a line out. This time they find Carl Wagner and they go to the back line. Swanepoel finds a gap. He's brought down eventually by Gerien van der Merwe. And the Griquas have stolen it. They've turned it over. So, and I've got a penalty now. Okay, so it's an interesting call. So Amy Batcheron says the first turnover was fine. Then they lost and tried to turn over it again, and that wasn't That turnover was fine. Okay, so given the pressure and stuff like that, the Cheetahs decided to go for the line. Yeah, and I mean it just hasn't been great, to be honest. It's been a very messy. I mean, we got the Cheetahs trying to dunk. I mean, Dries Swanepoel finds a gap, he gets through. The Griquas turn it over, then the Cheetahs turn it over. They get a penalty. They're going to go for poles. So nothing spectacular, nothing to write home about. To put it this way, it's definitely not going into my top 10 most memorable games to watch. But it is early days. Francois Steyn lines it up. He pretty much chips that a young 50 meters. Flags go up. That is half time. So half time score here: 10-6 in Kimberley. Cheetahs in control, 4-point lead there. The Griquas have kept themselves in the game, though. Also guilty maybe of not being as clinical as they'd like to be. But it hasn't been the worst of performances. And they're definitely in the game itself as they try and find their first victory of the game. The Cheetahs have been trying to be expansive, try to be a bit more creative, try to get some points on the board. Hasn't quite come off for them just yet. I'm interested to see if they continue trying to do that or if they just go back to the basics and try and get the win. At the end of the day, a win doesn't mean much. So, you know, it's more about, for me, about having a bit of fun, trying to toss the ball around, trying to play a really good game, as opposed to just trying to sort of grind out a victory when it doesn't mean anything in the wider contest. So that is the score, 6-10. Let me know what your final score predictions are. Also, if you're watching and you fancy writing an article or sharing your fan view, please do email me, stephen@foreversports.net, down at the bottom there. We are always looking for fans to come and contribute. We're a fan-based website, so all our content is generated by fans. So if you're interested in getting involved, please do get in touch. Also, please do smash the like button at the bottom there. We've got sitting on 9 likes there. Let's try and see if we can get up to 15 before the second half starts. Also, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Lots of watch-alongs coming along. And maybe a suggestion. So next weekend, we've got no Currie Cup action. The playoffs for the Currie Cup have been postponed. They will take place the weekend after. So we're looking for trying to decide what to do on Saturday for the watch-alongs. There is Heineken Cup, so that's sort of where I'm leaning towards. So let me know if there are any games you'd be interested in us watching next weekend. Yeah, I said there's Currie Cup. I mean, there's Heineken Cup action, so maybe a nice chance for some of some of us to go and check out what's happening in Europe and check out some of the opposition that teams like the Lions, the Sharks, the Bulls, and the Western Province or Stormers are going to be playing next season, I suppose. Well, I suppose even this season. It's all very odd, a season starting in April. Also very interested to see what's happening with the British and Irish Lions series. Not good news at the moment. They're going to make a decision on that at the end of the month. So we'll have to wait and see what that call is going to be. But yeah, let me know which games you'd like to see us do a live watch along next weekend in the Heineken Cup. In fact, I reckon we can go and check out some of the games and see what we've got in store for us and maybe make a call there. Right, so next weekend, in the European Rugby Champions Cup, as it's called these days, we've got Northampton versus Leinster, Toulon versus Scarlets, Lyon versus Glasgow Warriors. Looking at the Saturday games, Ulster versus Gloucester, 3 o'clock Saturday. I reckon that's a good one. I reckon we could, I think we'll definitely try and do that one. There's another one that's worth doing, Exeter, Toulouse, Munster, Clermont, Edinburgh, Sales, not a bad one. Montpellier Wasps, it's very late. Sunday as well, Bath versus La Rochelle, Dragons versus Bordeaux, Beagles, Bristol versus Connacht, Racing versus Harlequins. Ooh, I think we should try and do that game. Yeah, I think we'll have to try and do that game. Racing versus Harlequins next week, Sunday. That could be a very nice watch as well. But yeah, let me know if there are any requests or suggestions on which games to do next weekend in lieu of Currie Cup. We'll then obviously be back the weekend after with the playoffs, 2 semi-finals, the Lions versus the Bulls at Loftus, and the Western Province versus the Sharks at Newlands. The last game at Newlands, well, pending potentially the last game at Newlands. If the Western Province lose, if the Bulls lose and the Western Province win, then they'll have the final there, which I suppose would be the sort of perfect send-off, really. But if the Bulls win, then that will be the last game at Newlands next weekend. Also, please do get your score predictions in for the final scores. Currently sitting at 10-6. It's been quite a close game so far. I think if the Cheetahs get it right, they might be able to run away with it. They're looking to try and score a lot of points, as many points as possible, trying to be quite expansive. It hasn't quite come off just yet. But you can see the intent is there. They don't want this to be a boring sort of kick for goal, test match type affair. They want to try and make it watchable. They want to try and score as many points as possible. France staying kicking very well. As I said, we were talking about that earlier. Where will he go next season? Will he still remain at the Cheetahs? Will he look for a move away? Quite a few players, and I reckon we'll probably do a bit of a video in terms of which players could potentially be moving onwards. And I think players like Gideon van der Merwe could be in demand. France staying obviously in demand. John de Rudolph looks very good for the Cheetahs. I think it starts to become quite difficult for the Cheetahs to hang on to players if especially a union like the Sharks with a big financial injection, maybe they'll look at trying to bring in a couple of players. They have said that they are trying to bring the best players in the world to Durban. That is MBM Holdings, who have just taken over the Sharks, bought a 51% controlling share within the union. Sia Khaleesi looks like a formality. Rock Nation have been tasked with promoting the global brand. Sia Khaleesi is a Rock Nation client already. So is Cheslin Colby. They did ask about Cheslin Colby, and they said no, they have no contact or talks with Cheslin Colby. They said he's under contract, and they're not going to try and jeopardize that anytime soon. But that would be fantastic to see Colby back in the country. I mean, could you imagine Pimpy and Colby as your two wings at the Sharks? Woo! And you've got Nkosi, so you could have. I mean, imagine you've got your outside backs, the likes of Pimpy, Colby, Spoon Nkosi, Apelele Fassi, the pace that the Sharks would have if they were to get that done. But I don't think it's really an area they need to strengthen. Probably an inside centre. Maybe bringing back somebody like Rowan Janssen van Rensburg, who might swap the Sale Sharks for the Sharks in Durban. He would be a very good signing. Bring a bit of beef to that midfield. I mean, they've got Kanya Ahmed outside, so to be fair, not too many places in that backline where the Sharks don't have too much depth. Maybe a lock, and I'm hoping that. It's a bit of a weird one because I'd also quite like to see South African teams going and bringing in a couple of non-South Africans in. How nice would it be to go and see a couple of non-South African internationals playing down here? I mean, I always say that you've got to prioritize the South Africans and bring in the talent because there is so much talent. But it would be quite cool. I mean, it was quite cool when Carlos Spencer was playing down here. And we all remember Freddie Michalak at the Sharks. Oh, and also Colby will come back to the Western Province. Well, that's assuming the Western Province can afford them. I mean, the unions the amount they're paying P-Steph to Toy might bankrupt the union on that deal itself. But yeah, I'd love to see Colby back in the country. There's a lot of players I'd like to see back in the country. So hopefully, as we start seeing a bit more sort of privatization, we're seeing the Bulls bringing all the players back. Hopefully now we're going to see Sharks coming back, bringing players back. If anyone's watching has got a couple of million rand, feel free to buy the lines, bring some players back. I'd love to see the better players at the park. Not even better players, just bring back our old players. I mean, the Lions could bring back Franco Mostert, Faf de Klerk, Rowan Janssen van Rensburg. I'll have to bring Tyron Green back, to be honest. Everybody's saying we don't miss him at Tian Swanepoel, but I still really enjoyed watching Green. I would love to have him back. Western Province could also bring back some great players. So let's hope over the next year or two, with the move to Europe, we are going to see more and more players start to return to South African shores. We need that financial boost, though. It's so obvious that we need to privatize and we need to try and. I mean, you look at football and how even the smaller clubs have suddenly become so valuable, have been able to spend so much money. That's where we've got to get with rugby. We're never going to grow our unions. I mean, the fact that that Griquas, Pumas, Cheetahs can't compete at the moment, it comes down to them. They can't keep their players. I mean, to be fair, and also what I also think we need to do is stop provincializing everything. Why do we have to have one side from the Western Province? I mean, you've got Stellenbosch, you've got UCT, you've got so many good rugby schools and all the Pals. You know, there's so much talent coming out of the Western Cape. There's so much talent coming out of the Eastern Cape. Why do we have to have one side there? You know, we've got, I mean, even Gauteng. Why can't we have 3 sides in Gauteng, 2 sides in Natal? You know, let's try and, wouldn't it be cool if we had a sort of a 10-team Currie Cup and they were all, you had 6 top unions, 4 couple of fillers. You know, I mean, Pumas are always going to sort of try and challenge, but, you know, Kimberley or Griquas, they struggle. They're based in Kimberley, so it's a bit of a, you know, it's quite a big impact in terms of living conditions, whether people want to prefer to go live in Cape Town or live in Johannesburg or live in Durban or live in Kimberley. Someone else said Western Province needs to buy centres and a good fly half. Yeah, I agree, because I think Damian Willemse isn't a fly half. So, you know, bringing in a proper fly half would be a big boost. Be interesting to see then when Damian Willemse fits in. Because obviously when Watchalong's back, he does start, because for me he's playing fantastic rugby. But, you know, Willemse, more probably fullback. I'd like to see if he can have a bit of a run at inside centre, actually. But I think centres are probably quite a good shot. Ricky Pretorius, I think, has some potential. Dan du Plessis has a bit of hit and miss for me. He had some good games, but hasn't been anything too special. Also, wings. The Western Province has sorted out wings when it comes to injury. They just always seem to be injured. Different wing every blooming game. But yeah, probably the Western Province will just tweak the backline a little bit. Also, they need a reserve scrum off. I'll tell you what, Zach Berger, the Western Province could do a lot worse than getting Zach Berger into that union. Because after Herschel Yankees, there really isn't much scrum off depth there whatsoever. Then Vince will never play fly half again. I wouldn't be upset, to be honest. It's just not a position for me. You look at the attributes of fly half, you look at the attributes he's got, and they just don't line up. He's not a brilliant goal kicker. For me, his distribution is all right. His defense is all right, and his attacking talent, we all know what he can do when he's got the ball in space. So take away the responsibility of controlling the back line, take away the responsibility of kicking for goal, and tell him to run with the ball. You know, he's got a good enough boot to play a fullback. Right, so the players are back out, so we will have kickoff underway shortly. Last chance to get your final score predictions in. It's just a 4-point game at the moment. I'd be very surprised if it's a 4-point game at the end, unless the Griquas can try and get back into it. I think if the Cheetahs get their rhythm going. Amen. Right, so Robbie Keys gets the game back underway. Cheetahs are playing left to right. That's a very nice carry there from Cameron Limsey. So I'll say Herschel Yankee is too slow at the breakdown. I've been very underwhelmed by Herschel Yankees in this season. I think, you know, last season he was sort of breakout, and there's a reason he was coming in for the box and stuff like that, but hasn't quite managed to sort of get back to the standards he was playing at in 2019. So look, sometimes you do just go through those dips in form, which hopefully is the case. I mean, we've seen a lot of players who are underperforming. You see Khaleesi struggling a bit with fitness. And I think that's also why I've been saying that there's something that there's a couple of issues within the Western Province, because you look at their best players are not necessarily their performing players. You know, I mean, look, Stephen Kitsoff, Frans Malherbe, and Bongi Manambi, they're Mr. Reliable all the time. You know exactly what you're getting from those three. But your likes of Herschel Yankees, the likes of Damian Willemse, we haven't seen the best from them this season. As Cheetahs so Clayton Blommetjies tries to, here we go. So the Greek was on the attack here. Clayton Blommetjies, he shrugs off the attack. He's still going here. Greeks have found themselves within the 22. They've also got a penalty advantage. So what was a Cheetahs attack has now quickly been shifted towards the Griquas. Right, so we're having a bit of a TMO check here, so the time is off. Well, my time's off anyway. Okay, so we've got some dangerous play here. We're going to move back. It looks like there's been a dangerous tackle on Roscoe Speckman, so yeah, I'll change his line. He does take it. He knows exactly what he's doing there. Yeah, look, it is clinical. Right, so Cheetahs going for the line out. France will stay and will try and get as close to the try line as possible. And let's charge down. This is the problem. Funny enough, that's not the first time it's happened. France Stain has a very big boot, but he does kick it very, very low. And that has sometimes meant he has been charged down, which is exactly what's happened there. Seems to be us taking it quickly there. Griquas looking to run. James Verity Ams changed the direction of attack. He's gotten around the outside. Needs a bit of support. They've got numbers outside here. Glasson sets out Sunday. There's an advantage here for the Griquas. Jenkinson holds it up. The more quick ball here for the Griquas, and that's still playing advantage there. Amy Baritoan looked like she was going to blow. And eventually the penalty does come. So some nice play there by the Griquas, trying to keep the ball alive as well, trying to speed the game up a bit. This is better. This is more what we were hoping to see in the first half. Both sides looking to try and be very expansive, trying to attack each other, trying to play a nice brand of rugby. So long may this continue. We've got a penalty here on the halfway for the Griquas, so I'm sure they'll look to kick this to the corner, but much more promising signs so far in the early stages of the second half than in the first half. And my clock is just having an absolute meltdown at the moment. So let's see if we can try and sort this out. Hang on, I know what the issue is. Right. And we're back. Cool. So the clock is back. Right, so still got early stages. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments. Do smash a like on the video as well. Let's try and see if we can get to 20 likes by the end of the game. Also subscribe if you are new. Lots of cool stuff coming up. Nothing else says Port Verde is the best scrum off at the moment, and Western Province and them are similar, also very good. Yeah, I mean, I've seen good moments from them. So balancing the game time will be interesting. Look, I mean, both very young players. Problem is, look, Herschel Yankees always get backed. He's your Springbok winning scrum off. So he'll always have the bit of the sort of the tendency to back him. But yeah, I mean, that's what you need. And you need a player who's going to push him so that if he's not playing well, you can sort of justify dropping him. And this is all getting very messy. Oh my living. Okay, so coming back here for a Griquas penalty. It's all getting quite messy. Lots of kicks everywhere at the moment. Couple of knock-ons, couple of handbags. Zach Berger is back on the field. He's got the ball in his hand, and they're going to go for a line-out. Cheetahs, I mean, look, they're going to be. I reckon they're probably hovering in on yellow card territory. They keep this up. A couple of pretty basic penalties. He is not happy at the moment with what's going on, but can't really complain too much. Right, so the Griquas on the 5 meter. They go to the back. It has been won. And here comes the maul. It's worked for them so far. They shift to the right. They've got momentum. This looks good. This looks good. It has been stopped right by. There's just a pile of bodies. There's no ways. She's found grounding. Baritoan has found grounding. She's given it, and the Griquas are on the board first early in the second half. So a big shove right there. We said earlier that the rolling maul was working for them, and that is a huge moment in the game. Gideon van der Merwe. Who else? Who else for the Griquas? Probably their player of the season. Always in the action, always in and around things. Always makes a big impact. So the decent setup, they then sort of shifted to the right a little bit, and once they sort of did that, the Cheetahs were powerless to stop. And at first I was surprised they managed to find the grounding, but hopefully we'll see. Oh no, he comes through at the end there. And John Rudolph tries as hard as to try and cover it all up, but there is grounding there and tends to be able to try and add the 2 extra. All right, that was a pretty poor kick from tends to be. It wasn't the easiest kick, but it did go quite far to the right. So the score remains a 1-point game, 11-10 in favor of the Griquas, who are in front. The problem with the Griquas at the moment is that they haven't been able to protect leads and they haven't been able to sort of last the full 80. So they're in the lead now, but they'll want to score again and try and start opening up a little bit of a gap. Because the Cheetahs are going to try and run them flat. Full of running today. Oh, the side from Bloemfontein. But it's a decent... That's very, very well played. Cheetahs win a penalty. And this is and for those who've been watching recently, they'll know complete pear tate, and you cannot afford to do it. You cannot afford to score points and not protect the restart. And same thing, didn't protect the restart. Cheetahs got over the ball, won the penalty, and now France Dane can go and put it in there. And that's the problem, because what is you just undo all the good work you've just done. You know, you've done the hard yards, you've got the try, you've got points in the ball. All you need to do now is just not let them score quickly, and you continue momentum. But instead, they don't gather it properly. They concede a penalty, and suddenly the Cheetahs are on the front foot. And if the Cheetahs go and score, then it's just nullified what you've just done there. So some very good work there from Conrad van Vuuren from the tie to manage to get over. But as I said, it's just very poor from the Griquas. And now the Cheetahs more looks like that's just driving over, and that should be no issue as well. It has been held up. Okay, I'll take it all back. There's a penalty though, so they'll try again. And this is the problem. Now they're going to have to try and weather the storm. Where if they just managed to just catch it, recycle it, kick it out, then you don't have this issue. So the Cheetahs will have another attempt here. Been a good performance so far from Amy Barrett-Teron. Didn't call the first try correctly. There was a knock on there. And look, I mean, grounding-wise, the camera angles we struggled here, but she was convinced. But she's picked up on some very interesting calls, which some referees don't. All of them which have been correct so far. Very good with the communication. Always got a bit of sense of humor. And the Griquas have completely disrupted that more. Looks like and they've actually won the tournament. So that's a huge moment from the Griquas. Under pressure because they couldn't receive the kickoff properly, but they've responded, they've broken up that more, and they've won a scrum for themselves. Right, and a replacement for the Cheetahs. 2 new props on. Dawson and Kutum Tuna are on for Conrad van Vuuren and Bowen Venter. So a decent outing for them. And their first contribution will be to try and win a scrum early on here. 50 minutes to go. Well, 50 minutes down. 30 minutes still to play. 11-10 to the Griquas. Smash a like on the video there if you haven't already. Good start made from the Griquas. And it's a nice carry there as well from Swartz. And now tends to be able to try and find touch. And he does. Very nice extra play. That's what they need to do from the kickoff. You know, a nice solid scrum, a good carry there from the inside centre before Tennessee finds a nice touch founder. So still not out of trouble, but that's a much better extra play than what they saw from the kickoff itself. And you're about to run trying to keep the game going there, which is good to see, actually. What we've seen is a tendency, especially recently, is the sort of mini conference every single time there's a line out and people sitting there and having conversations and slowing the game down all the time. And Amy Boucher, I'm not having any of it. She's been trying to speed up the game the entire match. Not a good line out there from the Cheetahs, but they do retain it. And that is a knock-on. It looks like 2 knock-ons there. So the Griquas will have a scrum on the halfway line. That's the thing, and this is when we talk about momentum shifts. You know, some good exit play there from the Griquas, a poor lineup from the Cheetahs, followed up by a poor carry by Swanepoel. So all of a sudden, the sort of momentum shifts. And another strong year from the Griquas, a decent carry, and suddenly they'll start to believe that they can win this game. Right, so Griquas scrum just inside their own half, pretty much middle of the park, so options both left and right. Looks like they're going to try and go down the right. Again, solid scrum from the Griquas. And you get the ball out. The Cheetahs are starting to come through, but Zach Berger does recycle. Tennessee shifts it. And that's a knock-on. I'll take it all back. There's all the momentum that you're gaining. Get in there. Nice carry there. And it is a knock-on from Harlan Claassen. He hasn't done much all game, really. Hadn't had much opportunity. And just goes into the tackle quite high. Doesn't protect the ball. Loses it on the ground. And it'll be another scrum. And I think at the moment we're starting to see a bit more sort of scrum dominance coming in from the Cheetahs. Those 2 new props. First scrum was quite solid. Second scrum there was solid initially. But as the scrum went on, start to establish more dominance. So, yeah, as pretty much the same as the entire game. The Griquas will have to try and recycle scrums very quickly. Right, short time there for the Griquas. And the Griquas take it quickly. They get within to the Cheetahs half. So it's now the Griquas trying to speed things up. Now Harlan Claassen with the chance to redeem himself. Verity M, it's a good tackle. Oh, and he's done it again. He's dropped it again. Verity man with a bit of a chicken wing pass there. And Harlan Claassen not expecting and knocks it on. So decent idea there from the Griquas to try and speed up play. But the execution just not quite up to it, to be honest. And that doesn't look good. I think it's Roscoe Speckman down. I think he took a huge... Sorry, Duncan Saul down. He took a huge hit on the shoulder and he stayed down. He doesn't look happy at all. He's been good today, though, Duncan Saul. Comes into the side for Reno Benjamin. Full of running. I think he had a couple of carries, very good carries in the first half. Always seems to make a bit of ground. Quite a tricky character to bring down. So, did a nice game. He had a very big hit in the first half on Davids. Looks in quite a lot of pain, quite slow to get up. So, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to continue. But he is back on running, and we're going to resume with a scrum to the Cheetahs within their half. Just under 25 minutes to go. So the question is, can the Griquas hold on? Can they get their first victory of the tournament in their last game? Will the Cheetahs be able to end on a bit of a high note? Solid scrum there. There is an advantage for the Cheetahs. Flat ball there from Franstein. Good tackle there from De Beer. And the Cheetahs have to kick. Not much going on there. And they'll come back for the penalty. So, as you expect, scrum's pretty much going one way at the moment. All the Cheetahs, except for when they forgot to hook and did get give away a short arm, rather. Right, so Marks McCauley coming down there. Just guilty of his knee slipping there. So Kutam Chuno having a bit of a having the better of him so far. Right, Renat Pertain's now got a kick for touch. Not the best kick from Renat Pertain as well. He gets up to about the 10-meter line. And the Cheetahs just a bit error-ridden at the moment, you know. I mean, keeping in the game because the Griquas discipline, but just haven't quite been able to get going so far in the second half. And we're seeing now replacements from the Griquas. They're bringing on their new props there. Fisher is on in place of Ronald Jenkinson, and Marks McCauley has left the park, and he has been replaced by Tida Fisher. And he said, Sealer, the man who's been charged with carrying it up, he does make some ground there, but the Griquas are piling in there, and they've given away a penalty for not rolling away. So very, very much stop-start at the moment. Not too much fluidity in the game so far. And the Cheetahs, as I said, I think probably a sign of the fact that they're struggling to get into the game. They're going to go for poles here, try and just get the scoreboard ticking, because they just haven't been able to get going so far. So it was Kenny van der Merwe who actually ripped the ball in the tackle against Andisi and Sile. And then in trying to sort of win the ball, Greek was just guilty of not running away and just wrapped in the ruck. Right, so Frastain lines up his third kick of the afternoon. And there's no issues there, as you'd expect. And the Cheetahs are back in the lead with 22 minutes left to play. So, possession so far, 52% possession, Griquas 48, Cheetahs territory 51-49. So it's been very, very even across the board, which is why it's been such a close game so far. Just a bit messy. Would hope to try and see a bit more sort of clinical this from both sides. Decent exit play there from the Cheetahs, who find touch on the 10-meter line from the kickoff. So an opportunity up for the Griquas. And as I said, I'd just like to see some, just be a bit more direct, a bit more clinical. You know, hold on to the ball, less knock-ons, less set pieces. Because the problem is with the set pieces that we've just seen a lot of resets. And that's kind of just what the game's been all a bit about who can win the sort of set pieces and build on it. Which doesn't make for the best watching. And they're completely new front row for the Cheetahs. Van der Westhuizen comes on for Van der Merwe. So it's a new front row for the Cheetahs. So Greek was a bit of front foot ball there. Not the best pass, but that's going to be penalised. Yeah. Just penalised for obstruction there with James Verity having to go around one of the players there. Not really his fault, and was an easy call to make in the end. And I think that kind of sums it up. Where the Griquas have had some go forward ball, they've managed to attack the game line quite well. But just a couple of basics, you know, and he just, in trying to get around the player, Carl Vechtner gets taken out there. And as a result, The Cheetahs win a penalty, and France Stain is going to have a go at this kick, probably about 52 meters. So yeah, I mean the Cheetahs, I suppose, you know, if they can't really get into the game with ball in hand, just try and put points onto the ball anyway. And I think the last thing they need to do is lose this game. So 58 meters is the kick on the angle. Well, as expected, distance not an issue, as is the line. They put on a bit of a bigger lead, and the Cheetahs now sort of starting to swing the momentum. They haven't had any of the ball, which has been the impressive part. Very little of the ball so far in the last couple of minutes, but still winning 2 penalties and putting it over. And yeah, I think that'll hurt the Griquas because they've been the better side in the last few minutes, but they haven't been able to get any reward for it. Whereas the Cheetahs have just sort of hung in there, been quite physical on the defense, won their moments, gotten themselves a chance, and taken the points when they can. Oh, and the Cheetahs have spilled that. They've gone backwards, but almost a disaster restart there for the Cheetahs. And they've turned it over. But illegally so, and there's a penalty to the Cheetahs. So Griquas thought that they were back in there. But Amy Barataron deeming the turnover to not be legal. Okay, we've actually got a call from the side, from the touchline referee says that the player was taken out in the air from the kickoff. They're going to go back there. But again, not a particularly good restart for the Cheetahs. We saw it from the Griquas earlier, where after scoring a try, getting into the game, they then made a hash of the restart and were suddenly straight back under pressure. So the Cheetahs have gone away with that from the looks of it, but still not. I mean, it's always an area which I think should be so basic, you know, and it's very underrated. Because if you can't get that aspect of your game right consistently, then you just put yourselves under pressure every single time you get into the game. And there's no point kicking a penalty, taking your 3 points, if you're then going to make a mess of the restart, and they can then go and put 3 points over and just level it up. So winning your opportunities, getting a penalty, putting it over is as important as then catching the restart and making sure that those 3 points actually matter. The 19 minutes left of the two team seasons. Cheetahs hoping to finish on a high. Griquas still in search of their first victory. Let me know who you're backing in the last 19 minutes. France Stain complaining about them not being 10. He's already been charged down. Right, so a couple of substitutions here for the Cheetahs. Ruben de Haas is on in place for Tiamé. I was impressed with Ruben de Haas. He had some nice games since getting a couple of opportunities to start the last few weeks. Played very nicely. So he gets 19 minutes here to try and do something. Bit of a quiet game for Tiamé. He came off with quite good effect in the last few games. Better from the Cheetahs who break the gain line. They've got an advantage. Caden Lomikis gets into the game. It's been spilled. So Edwin Cater thinks he's on his bicycle on the way to the try line, but there is an advantage and they'll have to come back for the penalty. I don't think we've had 3 minutes of ongoing play this half. Okay, so there's a call here on RJ Smith for a late tackle. Well, they're having an ask about the possible late tackle. And once again, France Stain is going to get a kicking tee out, and he'll try and put this, not necessarily to bed, but try and put the Cheetahs well in the driving seat. He's kicked so well in the last couple of weeks. I don't think we're going to have too many issues here. Yep. As usual, no issues there. France staying at the extras. 19-11. Cheetahs well in front now. And the Griquas just, I don't have much of an answer at the moment. Struggling to get back into the game after scoring a very good try. Are just letting themselves down with some ill discipline. I mean, that's a needless penalty. Late tackle. There really wasn't a need, to try and get a bit of a personal battle on, somebody like Clayton Blommetjies. It's just such a waste. And he's been rewarded. I've just been rewarded by being taken off, in fact, which is probably the right move. Guilty a couple of times, and I think Baraturan was noticing, and I think he was quite close to a yellow card as Cheetahs almost spill that. But they do manage to eventually win it back. Jean Rudolph asked to bash it up. And penalty there from the Griquas. So that is the issue. Just too many penalties so far in the last couple of minutes from the Griquas. As soon as they get into the Cheetahs half, they're allowing the Cheetahs to go and get back into their own half, just through ill discipline. And that's always so frustrating as a coach, where you've been in the game, you've been playing well, and then just discipline starts to cost you. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the last 10 penalties, all from the Griquas. From 48 to 64 minutes, 8 penalties. And that's what I'm saying. The discipline is just costing them. They're well in the game. In many ways, have been better in certain aspects than the Cheetahs. You haven't been particularly good today. Try to be a bit more sort of... In the first half, they tried to bring the flair of old. Try to throw the ball around, try to be a bit imaginative. It didn't quite pay off. And you can see in the second half, they've just sort of decided, let's just get the result. And the Griquas look like they've stolen that. No, the Cheetahs eventually managed to clean them out. Cheetahs with some front foot ball. They're trying to bring the back line in. It's a rush defense. Oh my goodness, that's Barnstart staying again. That's the second time he's done that. Just taking his eyes off the ball, dropping it there, and the Griquas win a scrum pretty much in the centre of the park. You can see how annoyed he is at that. It's very uncharacteristic of him. That is the second time he's lost the ball on today. So he hasn't quite been at his best in open play, been fantastic with the boot. But he'll be frustrated at that. And just handling errors, 7 by the Cheetahs, 6 by the Griquas so far. Right, scrum here. And that's straight out the back. So Zach Berger gets it going quite quickly. James Verity he puts it on the boot, but it's not a great kick. Pretty well read by Clayton Blommetjies, who then kicks ahead. Here's De Beer, returns the favour. He's looking towards the touchline. Sankensal chucks up a foot. He managed to control it quite well in the end, actually. And now Ross Beckman has a bit of space. What's he going to do? The answer was not very much. The Cheetahs now. Clayton Blommetjies kicks deep. A bit of just no. I mean, look, decent defense here so far from the Griquas, but the Cheetahs are out of ideas, and now it looks like the Griquas are going to try and run. Cheetahs going on a bicycle. He makes a few meters. He gets into the half of the Cheetahs. Some pretty average passing there. And Verity tries to run around and Nsile. He doesn't manage it. He has actually won it. Roscoe Speckman's all very loose at the moment, which is where he thrives. Good counter out by the Griquas, but the Cheetahs have managed to keep hold of it. Some good defense here from the Griquas. But the Cheetahs are making progress. Another dab through from Clayton Blommetjies. He's tried it all afternoon and it has come off Cassenda into touch. So it will be a Cheetahs. Or has it? It looked like it came off him, but the touchline ref has given the line out to the Griquas. Yeah, I think he doesn't touch it, actually. So, the right call in the end there. Yeah, and the Griquas will have the line out. Cornea down, receiving a bit of attention. Very, very talented youngster is Cornea. Just 9